Men today are struggling with what they perceive to be an absence of meaning in the modern world. So I want to talk a little bit about meaning and where it comes from, as well as the perceived absence of meaning, which is sometimes called nihilism. In fact, that's where I want to begin, is in examining some of the assumptions that nihilism is often based on. So one of the first assumptions that leads people to become nihilistic is the idea that nothing lasts forever, and therefore nothing means anything. And I had a commenter a few weeks ago say that his story didn't matter because it wouldn't be remembered, that it would be forgotten. And so he considers himself a nihilist because his story won't last forever. And he's right. Everything is temporary. And everything always has been temporary. So it's kind of unreasonable to expect that meaning has to be tied to something lasting forever. Like meaning has to be tied to eternity. Nothing is meaningful unless it lasts forever. That's an unreasonable expectation based on the laws of the universe. You know, as I said in Invocation of the Storm, even the sun will die. You know, one day, even the sun will die. It will, go to, I think, red dwarf status and incinerate the Earth. And that's one of the reasons why Elon Musk thinks we need to become an interplanetary species so that we can escape that fate. Even though it's a few million years away, but I don't really see the sense of urgency. But I think that maybe he thinks that the people are stupid, the people are retarded. So that if he doesn't do it, then no one else will. So I think it's a worthy task. But no matter what, for some reason, our species probably won't last for eternity. And this is just something that men have struggled with. Even though we can rationally say that's not a reasonable expectation, men have struggled with this all through history. And we don't like to imagine ourselves not being there, or our story ending. And I don't like to imagine it either, but you have to kind of make peace with it. And this is just, it reminds me of a piece of art, a piece of conceptual art that has been one of my favorites for years and years and years. And the thing about conceptual art is that sometimes it's the title that makes it, right? So there's this piece called, it's a tiger shark. And it's by this artist named Damien Hirst. And there's this tiger shark in this tank of formaldehyde. And obviously it's dead. And it looks dead. And the piece is called The Impossibility of Death in the Mind of the Living. And it always struck me. It's such a fantastic title for this giant dead shark. And the title itself says the problem. It's impossible for us to believe, to perceive us being not here. So a lot of religions have tried to address that. Some don't. Or some just say, oh, you return to, nirvana or whatever. But a lot of religions sell you on an afterlife. This is how we solve the problem. We're going to tell you that your life is going to go on forever and you'll be reunited with God or whatever for all eternity. And so then that puts people at peace and they don't have to deal with recalibrating their expectations that nothing's going to last forever because they believe that they're going to, be in heaven or wherever for all eternity. So that's one solution to that problem of the impossibility of death in the mind of the living. They solve it with religion. They tell you a story about where you're going to be. And maybe it's true. I don't know. I don't know for a fact that it's not true. But it seems unlikely. Seems like a just so story. But men have been struggling with this problem of resolving themselves to the fact that they're going to die for all of human history. It's part of the oldest story in the world, the Epic of Gilgamesh. And in the Epic of Gilgamesh, he watches his friend die, Enkidu. He watches his friend Enkidu die, and he's fearless up until that point, but once he watches his friend Enkidu die, he realizes that he's going to die too, and he doesn't want to experience that. He doesn't want that to happen. He wants to live forever because he's this great king, this king of kings. And so he goes on a journey to meet this man who is essentially an earlier version of Noah. He actually built a ship to survive when gods flooded the world. And because he survived and repopulated the world, then the gods gave him eternal life. So his name is Utnapishtim, this version of Noah that precedes the Bible. And so Gilgamesh journeys to meet Utnapishtim and asks him if he can live forever, and he says no. But there is a way, and he finds a way, but then he loses it. And he ends up having to, in the end, resolve himself to the fact that he's going to die. And I think that's so powerful that is one of the oldest stories in the world. This is this problem that we've been dealing with since the beginning of time. And there's another thing that's very old. The oldest song in the world has kind of the same theme. The oldest song that we have the music for and the words for, it's called Seikilos' Epitaph. And basically the message of the song is that you don't know how long you have. And, like fate is fickle, Kronos, god of time, you don't know how much time that you have. So while you live, shine. Like, be the best that you can be, do the best that you can do, live life. And again, it's so powerful that that's one of the oldest songs that we have. And I happen to have it memorized, so I can tell you a little bit how it goes. I don't actually speak Greek, so it's not going to be perfect. But it goes something like this. O sonzes fenu meren holo sulupu prosolegon estitosen totelos o chronos apeti. Something like that. I'm not a singer either. But while you live, shine. So these are some of the ways that people have resolved this eternal problem. Resolve the problem of death. And that's one of the reasons why you can't tie meaning to eternity. You have to resolve the problem that life is temporary. You have to resolve that and accept that life is temporary. And then the idea that meaning is attached to something being eternal or lasting forever seems ridiculous. So saying that something has to last forever in order for it to be meaningful is one of the first assumptions and kind of problems with nihilism. And one of the second assumptions that a lot of nihilists make is that nothing means anything unless there's some kind of universal truth. There's some kind of objective truth or universal truth. And that's also extremely problematic. But that's what leads many people to go back to religion, because they want universal truth. They want something that is always true, always and everywhere. And there probably are some truths like that in the universe, laws of physics, things like that. But not all meaning is going to be universally true. Humans are subjective creatures. And this is one of the problems that Nietzsche addressed with what he called the death of God, is that he wasn't really necessarily talking about the death of this particular deity. That's a small thing. He wasn't saying that God was alive and then it was dead. He was saying that there was a consensus about objective truth. And as people stop believing in that consensus about objective truth, there's going to be chaos. Because as long as everyone is on the same page, then everything seems safe and right and normal and ordered in the world. But the reality is that people are going to come in contact with other people from other places than around the world, and they're all going to have their own subjective perspective about things, and they always have. Human truth is very tribal in that way, and what is good for the wolf is not necessarily good for the deer or what have you. There are a lot. It depends on who you are in relationship to what, and many times what objective truth or objective good is or objective evil is. And that's very messy, and people don't like things to be messy. They like the world to be ordered, and I understand that. Men want to create order, in the world. But becoming nihilistic and being like nothing means anything because everyone isn't on the same page is also unrealistic, because everyone has never been on the same page. You know what they say, like, if you start a sentence with, if everyone would just blank, everything you say after that is wrong, because that will never happen. All of humanity will never get on the same page about everything. So there's always going to be different versions of the truth out there. So you can't tie meaning to that either. And meaning is this very slippery thing, and because it's for us. You know, the world doesn't need, like, I'm out here in this desert. None of this needs me to exist. All of this would exist without me. And none of these things need names. Oh, that's a saguaro cactus. Is it? Does it know it's a saguaro cactus? Does it care? How many other names does it have in other languages? Probably a lot of American Indian languages and so forth. You know, pick this up because this is a rock. But this doesn't need the name rock to exist in the world. That meaning is entirely for us. It's how we make sense of the world. So rather than being nihilistic about the fact that that there isn't some kind of universal meaning or objective meaning to everything, and that there are differences in perception between different groups of people, the way you can look at it is that you are empowered to create meaning. And men have always done that. You know, think of the first men in some place. This is why I call my organization the First Men. Think of the first men going to a place, and you know, maybe they found new things that didn't have names. They gave them the names. And what is a name? What purpose does a name have? A name is a rule about a thing. You know, by calling this a rock, I'm also saying that it's not something else. It is not a tree. Names are exclusive. And, you know, I could break it into a bunch of little rocks, and then we call it gravel. And, you know, whatever kind of rock this is has a name too. Names are this taxonomy of things that organize our world for us. And names are the beginning of meaning. And that's why words are so important. And I'm going to make another video about this, but the definitions of words shape our reality to a certain extent. Like, yes, this rock exists without me, but the way we choose to relate to it, and there's people who study this in terms of like languages, the way that people, you know, set up the structures of their languages says a lot about their psychology. So if you change the names of things, you change meaning, and a lot of things follow from that. But the point for this video is that rather than becoming nihilistic, because truth is somewhat subjective and meaning is somewhat subjective, that empowers you to become a creator and decide what something means to you, what's important to you, what are your values. What do you care about in the world? What's beautiful? You assign these adjectives to things. And I don't find, that doesn't make me nihilistic at all. That makes me very excited about life. That's very creative. It gives you this creative license with the world. Now, we also have to have some kind of order so that we can communicate, right? We have to have the same words for certain things. And when someone tries to change the word, that's very tricky. And change the meaning of a word, they're trying to change your psychology. So you have to watch that. But meaning itself, you know, is you get to decide what matters to you in your life. And I don't think that's a reason to become nihilistic at all. I think that's a beautiful thing. So meaning doesn't have to be tied to time. if something's temporary, it can still be meaningful. Whether that's a relationship, whether that's your life, whether that's something that you did that is now gone. And meaning doesn't have to be shared by everyone. In fact, it never will be. So that's no reason to be nihilistic either. So that's what I have for you today. I'm Jack Donovan. Stay solar.